This is a Channel Africa podcast. You can also get Channel Africa on satellite PAS10, DSTV Audio Bouquet 802, and OpenView Bouquet Channel 628. Benjamin Mushatama and Palisatawo on the move.
Well, according to Afrobarometer's Pan-Africa profile, gender-based violence is ranking as the most important women's rights issues that Africans want their governments and society to address. So, well, this is a very important document because it looks on average across 39 countries, and that's a lot of countries indeed. And what it states is that almost 4 in 10 respondents in those 39 countries on the African continent were saying that gender-based violence is common in their communities. Well, Asafika Mpako is Afrobarometer's communications coordinator for Southern Africa. She joins us once again right here on Channel Africa. Asafika, welcome back on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Benjamin.
So describe this particular Pan-Africa profile. What is it?
All right. Before I get there, allow me to just give a brief overview of our organization for those who may be unfamiliar. So Afrobarometer is a Pan-African non-partisan survey research organization that provides reliable data on the experiences, evaluations, and aspirations of African citizens regarding democracy, governance, and quality of life. We have conducted 9 rounds of surveys since 1999 in up to 42 countries across the continent. So we're really leading the charge to bridge the continent's data gap. And why is it that we do the work that we do? Well, our goal is very simple, and that is to make citizen voice a key pillar of policy and decision-making on the continent.
Sure.
So a Pan-Africa profile is a report produced by Afrobarometer that gives an overview of what is happening across the continent on a particular topic. And in this case, we looked at the topic of gender-based violence across the 39 countries that we surveyed in our recently concluded Round 9 survey. And those are the findings that we're going to discuss today.
So tell us a little bit about what Africans are saying about gender-based violence. Can you sum up some of the key themes that the profile unpacks?
So the first thing that we ask, Benjamin, is what Africans perceive to be the most important women's rights issue right now. And what we found in our survey is that gender-based violence remains a critical concern in Africa. So 31% of respondents cite gender-based violence as the most important issue that governments and society must address. Violence against women outranks the scarcity of women in influential positions, which only 20% of respondents cited as the most important problem. Violence against women also outranks unequal access to education, which was cited by 17% of respondents, and it also outranks unequal opportunities or pay in the workplace, which was cited by 16% of respondents. Interestingly, we also found that women and men offer almost identical rankings of the most important women's rights issues. So on the matter of gender-based violence, men are just as likely as women to say it is an important issue. It is the topmost concern that governments and society must address.
Well, that's
but
very...
Of course,
sure, go ahead.
It varies widely across countries on the continent. So, for instance, in Cabo Verde, we found that 69% of respondents say that this was an important issue. And in Lesotho, 64% say the same. But it is a second highest priority in 6 other countries, third highest priority in another 6, and it ranks 4th or 5th in the remaining 6 countries. So, for instance, in Mauritania, unequal access to education between men and women is the most widely cited concern, and there GBV is only prioritized by 5% of respondents.
Tell us a little bit more about why those countries that rank in such a extreme way the importance of GBV think that this is an important issue. Why is GBV ranking the most important women's rights issue in those African countries that you just cited?
So, while we do not ask our respondents why they rank gender-based violence as the most important issue, one reason that GBV is considered a critical issue we have found is probably its frequency. So what we do ask respondents is this question: in this area, how common do you think it is for men to use violence against women and girls in the home or the community? And for that question, we found that almost 4 in 10 Africans, that is 38% to be exact, say it is somewhat common or very common. But again, there is huge variation across countries. So for instance, Angola tops the list, where 62% of respondents say that gender-based violence is a common occurrence in their communities. Angola is followed by Namibia, where 57% of respondents say that domestic violence is a common occurrence. Other countries where over 50% of respondents say domestic violence is a common occurrence include Botswana, Liberia, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Sao Tome and Principe, Tunisia, and Lesotho.
That's really remarkable. Tell us a little bit about what people are saying about gender-based violence, because there's so many different perceptions that are actually coming out from this report. And I think that says a lot about how we think about gender-based violence.
That's exactly right, Benjamin. So an interesting question that we ask our respondents is the idea around using physical force against a spouse. So we ask respondents whether they think it can always be justified, sometimes be justified, or never be justified for a man to use physical violence on his wife if she has done something he doesn't like or thinks is wrong. And what we found here is that on average across the 39 countries that we surveyed, more than 2/3, that is 69% of Africans, say it is never justified for a man to use physical force to discipline his wife. We also ask, importantly, whether Africans think domestic violence should be treated as a criminal matter or as a private matter. And here we find that citizens are almost evenly divided. So half, fully 50%, believe that domestic violence should be treated as a criminal matter that requires the involvement of the police, but about the same proportion, that is 48%, consider it a private matter to be resolved within the family. And again, here we see wide variation across countries. So for instance, in Botswana, in the Seychelles, in Sao Tome and Principe, and Cabo Verde, overwhelming majorities, over 80% of respondents say domestic violence should be treated as a criminal matter. But in other countries, fewer than 1 in 4 see it that way. And those countries include Niger, where only 11% say that domestic violence should be treated as a criminal matter. In Sudan, only 20%. In Mali, only 23%. And in Guinea, the same at 23%.
Benjamin Mushatama and Palisatawo on the move.
We are talking to Asafika Mpako, Afrobarometer's communications coordinator for Southern Africa. She's joining us on the line to speak about the Afrobarometer Pan-Africa profile on gender-based violence. We know that currently in South Africa, it is the 16 days of activism against violence of women and children. And the Afrobarometer Pan-Africa profile really takes a look at gender-based violence on the African perspective, with research done on various types and various parts of gender-based violence across the continent. Well, Asafika, sometimes it feels like surveys can either reflect or perhaps not have an accurate reflection of what society really feels about conversations and issues like gender-based violence. But it's great to have them because we get to see, on average, what exactly people are thinking about these very important issues. We just spoke about, what Africans are saying about gender-based violence according to the Afrobarometer's Pan-Africa research. But are Africans reporting these gender-based violence cases?
Very important question, Matt, and we have a few questions in the survey that speak to that. So one of them is a question around whether a woman is likely to be criticized, harassed, or shamed for reporting gender-based violence. And on this particular question, we find that more than half of respondents say it is somewhat likely or very likely that a woman who reports GBV to the authorities will be criticized, harassed, or shamed by others in the community. And majorities in 22 countries share this view, ranging up to 3 in 4 citizens, that is 74% in Tunisia. In the Seychelles, only 25% say that a woman is likely to be criticized, harassed, or shamed for reporting GBV. We also asked our respondents about the police response to GBV. So do the police take GBV cases seriously? And here we find that 8 in 10, that is 81% of respondents see it as likely that the police will take such cases seriously.
Wow.
So that is a very, very positive finding. And these two questions taken together show us that citizens can either be led to report cases of GBV in accordance with whether they believe that they will be harassed or criticized, shamed in their community, and in addition to whether they believe the police's response to their case will be positive, will be in their favor. So those are the two questions that we ask or pose to our respondents with regards to responses to GBV cases.
Sure. I mean, those are such, harrowing findings, and it really is in line. I mean, you were asking also to the respondents if domestic violence is a criminal or private matter, as you spoke to with Benjamin. But even for those countries, I suppose, who feel that, gender-based violence is a criminal matter, still might not have, enough support from law enforcement or feel that law enforcement will even do anything about it, even when they know that this is a criminal matter. So, I mean, just seeing that correlation really, is a lot and takes a lot from this kind of research. But does the research of Afrobarometer's Pan-Africa profile reveal anything about the gender-based violence perpetrators and its victims?
So the findings that I've shared with you are some of the questions that we pose to our respondents with regards to GBV. We don't ask anything related to perpetrators specifically, but what we do ask is whether respondents or citizens believe that government is doing enough to promote the equal rights and opportunities for women. And on this question, across the 39 countries that we surveyed in, a majority, that is 56% of Africans, say their government is doing fairly well or very well on promoting equal rights and opportunities for women, while 41% disagree. And again, assessments vary widely by country. So while more than 8 in 10 citizens approve of their government's performance in places like Tanzania, Uganda, in Togo, and in Madagascar, fewer than 1 in 4 Sudanese and Lesotho agree. But we must give credit to our governments who have taken important steps to address GBV. So, for instance, 52 African states have ratified the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, which is widely regarded as the Global Bill of Women's Rights. And since 1992, it formally acknowledges the importance of addressing violence against women as part of advancing these rights for women. But also we have SDG goal number 5, which calls for the elimination of violence against women and girls. And also on a continental level, 44 states have ratified the Maputo Protocol, which commits states to addressing violence against women, including harmful traditional practices such as child marriage and female genital mutilation. So it is important to acknowledge that, yes, the problems exist and there's a long way to go, but government is making concerted efforts in this area, and citizens are also acknowledging these advancements in the survey.
Well, this is great. I guess a little bit of bad news and some good news as well when it comes to these particular findings in the research, but definitely a work in progress for the entire African continent, and very important to have, this kind of research done to see how Africans are thinking, to see the patterns around us, and hopefully in the future and much needed alleviation of gender-based violence on the continent. But Asafika, thank you so much for your time. It's been great chatting to you and unpacking these findings together.
Thank you so much for having me. It was lovely being here.
That podcast was courtesy of Channel Africa, the African Perspective.